Hello, dear friends. Greetings from Mount Angel. Now, here's a thought for you today. If lions could speak, we would not be able to understand them. Even if they could speak English, we would not be able to understand them, because a lion's world is so very different from our own. And that's just one of tens of thousands of examples of possible imaginings of animals speaking. I think that that's a strange and lovely and challenging and amusing thought. It comes from Wittgenstein. And I bring it up perhaps because it can perhaps quickly throw into relief how absolutely marvelous is the phenomenon of human speech. It's not only marvelous, it borders on the divine, if not in fact actually participating in divine life. Think about it. We share so much in common with the animal world, and we share life also in different ways with other things that live on our splendid and precious planet. Plants and trees and insects, not to mention microbes and other things swimming around in our bodies and in all the bodies of other living things. Whatever it is, and wherever you locate anything along the scale of living things, we all share life from out of this special planet and its improbable conditions, which make such sophisticated forms of life possible. So returning to human language, we're not the only animals that make noises with air taken into our throats and pushed out again. Lions roar. And there are barks and meows and moos and howls and so forth. And every one of these produces results in the animals that make these sounds, but also in other groups of animals, would seem with less precise results, that don't make these sounds but have learned to react to them. So, human language. Among the sounds that this animal makes, me, I can make a pretty precise and very multifaceted, complicated string of bodily sounds with my throat. And these sounds, heard by other of my species, not only get other people's attention, they actually have the capacity to set the people hearing them, and there can be a lot of people hearing them all at once, set the people hearing them into some same line of thoughts and emotions, such that a kind of communion is created among these human animals, just in virtue of one of them making sounds with his body, and others hearing those sounds with the ears of their bodies. Like it's happening right now. Doggies and horses and lions and cows, for all the noises they make, do not have, it would seem, as deep a level as communication as we humans have, or at least potentially have. Now, why do I bring all this up? I think what I'm saying here, which after all is nothing more or less than just a careful description of a priceless dimension of human existence. I think what I'm saying here should remind us that we ought to be especially careful in our use of language and the things we say. We ought always to speak the truth. As the Apostle Paul urges in his letter to the Ephesians, let no corrupt talk come out of your mouths. Say only the good things that will build people up. And indeed, one of the 10 commandments is not to lie. Such a prohibition is necessary for our fallen race. For misusing language is one of the most serious ways in which we pervert the godlike image and likeness in which we humans were originally made. Why do I call human language godlike? I learned that from God's own revelation of God's self. In the very first pages of the Bible, in the book of Genesis, we read, God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. God's speech converges with God's deed. They are one and the same. And paralleling this text from the first verses of Genesis, we hear the first verses of the Gospel of John. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. So, dear friends, that we have language, and not merely roars and barks and howls, that we have language is our share in the divine life. And we ought always to use language as carefully and as precisely and as truthfully as possible. Never using it to hurt others, to confuse them, or lead them astray. I'm sharing a monastic value with you here. St. Benedict teaches that we should esteem silence, so that when we do speak, we might do so out of the space where we have heard God's true word, and our words might echo those truths. He warns, quoting the book of Proverbs, in a flood of words you will not avoid sin. And again, the tongue holds the key to life and death. Surely there are many situations in our current scene these days, COVID trials and elections and demonstrations of various kinds, for example, scenes where this age-old wisdom could do us some good. Dear friends, thanks be to God for human language. Let us use it carefully and in truth.